I would like to start this episode from a really honest place, right? Because I can speak about the topic of anxiety, not just from the materials that I've studied over these last 18 years of deep diving into the subject, but really coming from a personally lived experience with anxiety, right? Because so much of my younger years, I lived with anxiety and I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what to call it, right? There wasn't a language for it in my world. And no one around me said, oh, what you're experiencing is anxiety, right? So what happened was it just kind of became the background music of my life. It was always there. It was this subtle but constant hum of tension in my body. And sometimes I would experience it as a kind of like a pressure in my chest. Sometimes it was just a restlessness in my system, right? Kind of like just a sense that I couldn't fully relax, even when everything technically was okay, right? I wasn't in danger. I was safe. I was okay, right? But this feeling still existed. And because I didn't understand it, it didn't show up as anxiety in the way people often talk about it, right? It showed up as irritability or frustration, sometimes as anger, sometimes as a form of rebellion, right? And sometimes just this feeling that I needed to move or to fix something or to do something, but I didn't know what. And so it wasn't until I started really doing deeper inner work years later that I was able to really look back in hindsight and name it, right? I could name the tightness. I could name the activation. I could understand where the constant scanning was coming from. And ultimately, it was anxiety, right? And what I've come to understand over time is something that I really wish more people talked about, right? Because I don't think that our generation, and in our generation, let's face it, majority of people are living with some form of anxiety. I don't think we really truly understand what it is and that it has a really important purpose, right? And that's why when we experience anxiety, it seems like things are falling apart. But sometimes, right, when things are getting louder or things feel like they're falling apart or life feels unmanageable, it's really the moment, if we really learn how to work with the anxiety, it's the moment right before life starts getting better, right? And I really want to emphasize this because this is so important. You know, anxiety doesn't only show up in chaos. It often shows up as a way to intensify expansion. Okay. And if you don't understand that, then you're really going to misinterpret what's happening, right? You're going to think the anxiety means something must be wrong, or I might be off track, or something's not right, right? When in reality, what might be happening is you might just be standing right at the edge of your greatest expansion, of something really beautiful, of a life on the other side that is so much more aligned with your soul's purpose of being on this planet. Okay, so we're going to unpack this today because this is where so many people get stuck. Let's dive in. Becoming a co-creator with the creator is your birthright. Together, we'll journey into your deepest authenticity. Because the more you align with who you truly are, the more effortlessly you call in the life that you desire and deserve. And most importantly, the more you step into your soul's highest purpose. Welcome to the Manifestation Method podcast, your #1 source for Kabbalistic manifestation. Here we combine the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah, modern psychology, and quantum physics to help you achieve real, tangible manifestation results with my proven Abra method. I'm Ayelet Polonsky, and I'm here to guide you on your journey of manifesting a life that is aligned, expansive, and deeply connected to your highest self through the sacred energetic mechanics of Kabbalistic manifestation. To learn how to use Kabbalistic manifestation to transform your life from the inside out, go to ayeletpolonsky.com or download the Manifestation Method app. Let's open the gates of manifestation together. You know, there's this idea that we've been sold, especially in the personal development and manifestation world even. And it's a story that says, if you're aligned and if you're doing the work and if you're growing, then life should start feeling easier and lighter and more peaceful. You know, and yes, I do want to emphasize that in many ways that's true, but nobody tells you that the moment before expansion often, and I'd say more often than not, feels like a massive contraction, right? The moment before your life opens often feels like pressure, right? Kind of like going through the birth canal before you're born, right? There's a constriction before an expansion, right? Olives, in order to turn into olive oil, have to go through pressure before they purify into oil. Grapes, in order to turn into wine, under pressure before it turns into wine, right? Your life doesn't expand in isolation. You must expand alongside with it, right? The grape is expanding alongside itself in order to turn into wine, if that metaphor makes sense. I don't know. Right? And so your nervous system does not experience expansion as, yay, let's go, I'm ready. No, of course not. That's not how we're built, right? Expansion is unfamiliar. And really unfamiliar territory to the nervous system is often read as red alert, alarm, alarm, unsafe. I mean, same with the caterpillar that turns into a butterfly, right? It goes through kind of like it's the chrysalis phase, but I call it the dark chrysalis phase, right? Because it's in that cocoon that the caterpillar literally needs to turn into mush. It needs to almost like kill off its old identity in order to spread its wings and fly. And that process that the caterpillar has to undergo while in the chrysalis phase is done with a lot of pressure and resistance, right? Like, I imagine that if I was a caterpillar and I was in the chrysalis phase, I'd want to hold on for dear life to my old caterpillar friends, right? Or I would tell them all, hurry up, come. Let's all turn into butterflies together. But the point is, the pressure comes before the freedom or the expansion or the next iteration of your life's manifestation. Right. And so let's make this more practical, because I don't know if everybody can relate or feels like a caterpillar here. So imagine this, right? Say your whole life you've experienced a certain level or type of love, right? Let's say maybe it was inconsistent love. Maybe it was love that you really had to work for. You know, maybe it was unpredictable. One moment a parent is expressing love, the next moment they're expressing anger. Right? Maybe it's a love where you were the one overgiving to the other. You know, maybe it was the type of love that only showed up when you were performing a certain way, when you were a good girl or a good boy, right? And so let's say now suddenly as an adult, you meet someone who is actually consistent in their love, right? They show up, they communicate, they care. They don't disappear when you're dysregulated or being emotional, right? And so logically, you're telling yourself, this is everything I've been asking for plus more. But your body is like, what is this? This is different. This is unfamiliar. And suddenly, boom, anxiety. Right? Not because something's actually wrong, not because you're in danger, but because something here is new. Before we continue, I'd like to share something that I've personally been using in my own practice, especially during monthly ceremonies and gatherings. I've been integrating the Rainbow Chakra full length mat from Healthy Line, and it's become a really supportive part of how I ground my nervous system and create intentional space. This mat combines far infrared heat, PEMF therapy, and chakra aligned gemstones, which makes it incredibly powerful for slowing down, regulating, and reconnecting with the body. Each time I get on the mat, it works every time. I feel a deep sense of warmth and a settling. I don't feel stimulated. I don't feel like I have to force anything. It's just my system remembering how to soften. So I use it during meditation, breath work, and like I said, I have all my participants use it during monthly ceremonies, and I've gotten such amazing feedback. Everybody just loves laying on this mat. It's really the kind of experience that stays with you even after you get up off the mat. So if you're curious about it and you want to learn more about how it works and how I use it in my own personal practice, you can click the link in my show notes or visit the link in my bio. Okay, or let's take another example, right? Let's say you've been wanting to grow your business, or you've been wanting more visibility, more impact, more income, whatever it is. And then suddenly opportunities start opening up and opportunities start responding to your desire and your intention. And say people start to see you and notice you and things are starting to move. And then suddenly, instead of feeling excited, you feel pressure, you feel doubt, you start to hear that little voice in the back of your head that's questioning, am I really ready for this? What if I mess up? Who do I think I am? Right? And then again, boom, anxiety. Not because you're failing, but because you're expanding. And this is what people don't understand, right? Your nervous system is calibrated to your past, not calibrated to your potential. So when your life begins to exceed what your system is used to because you're expanding beyond into something greater, it doesn't automatically or initially feel good. It initially feels really destabilizing, and the tendency is want to resort back to what's safe and familiar and keeping you in that smaller bubble, right? And so this is where so many people self-sabotage, not because they misinterpret the feeling. It can be uncomfortable. They feel the discomfort. And instead of recognizing it as expansion, they automatically just assume, right? Oh, this is misalignment. This must not be for me. Right? So they pull back, they shrink, they leave the relationship, they don't raise the price to what they thought they wanted the price to be, right? They don't take the opportunity. They just convince themselves this isn't right for me. When the reality is, it's not that it's not right for you, it's just unfamiliar territory. And this actually overlaps a important concept in Kabbalistic wisdom called klipot. Right? So klipot are the shells that surround your light, right? We all, at our essence, at our core, are infinite light beings. And we have klipot that surround our light. And the light within represents blessing and joy and expansion and abundance and possibility, right? The light represents your next level. But before you can actually access the light, you encounter the shell, the klipa that surrounds the light. It's the encountering of the resistance, of the friction, of the discomfort, kind of like how an orange has an orange peel that blocks us from accessing the juicy inside immediately. First, we have to get through the shell, right? That protective layer, right? So the shell is not bad. The klipa is not bad. It's a protector part that's trying to keep us safe. And so we want to honor it, listen to it, but not allow it to actually sabotage our growth. And so most people, when they access the shell or they feel the shell, they just assume there's no light, there's only shell, there's only resistance, right? And so they feel the anxiety and assume something is wrong, right? They feel the anxiety because deep down on a soul level, you know that your soul is ready, that there's a desire for expansion, that you want something more. You want the relationship, you want the career, you want the new home, you want to move locations, whatever it is. On a soul level, your soul knows. And so your soul is always anchored in truth, right? It knows that it knows that it knows what your highest purpose is. Right? But once you encounter the shell that surrounds your deeper knowing, right, we assume something's wrong. But what if that very discomfort is actually the shell beginning to crack, right? That understanding shifts everything. Because then what happens is instead of asking, how do I get rid of this anxiety? You start asking a much more empowering question. You start to ask yourself, what is this anxiety asking me to become capable of holding? Right? What is this pressure, this contrast, this discomfort that we're calling anxiety actually asking of me in terms of my capacity to hold what's on the other side of this expansion? And so this is really where we bring in the somatic layer, because so many people think anxiety is just like thoughts that flood their mind. It's like nonstop looping, 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 looping. But anxiety is not just a thought, right? It's a body experience. It's your system saying, this is bigger than what we've known, right? The thing that your soul is asking you to step into is bigger than what you've known in the past. So are we actually safe here? And so the work here is not to override your need for safety, because that's important. And we want to honor the nervous system and the pace at which the nervous system can move through expansion, right? The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly as quick as snapping a finger, right? There's a process of a few days, and so the work here is not to override your need for safety. The work is to teach your body that it is safe to expand, right? And that's a very important distinction. This is the difference between forced growth, right, and embodied growth, right? So forced growth just wants to get to the end result right away and rush the healing, rush the process, push through it, just do it, get over it, yalla, right? Whereas embodied wisdom, embodied growth says something along the lines of, I'm going to move forward and I'm going to bring my nervous system with me, right? Because, the truth is, you don't just manifest what you want. And this is something I always say, right? You don't just manifest what you want. You manifest what your nervous system has the capacity to hold. Hi, Ayelet here. I just wanted to pop in and say I am so excited to officially introduce the Manifestation Method portal, membership, and app. This is your home for all things Kabbalistic manifestation. You'll get access to my monthly live workshops, soul deep hypno activations and attunements, all of our manifestation courses, and our global community of manifestors. And the best part, it's just $26 a month. That's less than a latte a week. Come manifest alongside me and start creating the life you desire and deserve. Head over to ayeletpolonsky.com to join us. Okay, so if your life starts expanding faster than your capacity to hold on to what it is you're expanding into, that's when the anxiety will show up. And again, to reiterate, it's not as a punishment, but as a signal, right? A signal that simply says, okay, we need to integrate now, right? We need to come back into alignment, but it doesn't mean that you abandon ship. Just because you're feeling the anxiety doesn't mean that you self-sabotage, right? You integrate the discomfort with your need for safety and security. Okay. And just to kind of pause here for a moment as I'm sharing all of this. And if you're still listening and you're having that moment of like, okay, Ayelet, I get this, but how do I actually live this as embodied wisdom? Like, how do I integrate all this work? And so that's exactly why I created this work inside of my app, inside of a membership. And I just released a brand new masterclass called Alchemize Anxiety, where I take everything we're speaking about here. I mean, the nervous system, the subconscious patterns, the emotional layers, the spiritual dimension. And I actually walk you through how to work with it in a real embodied way, right? So that we're not just understanding it on the level of mind, but actually transforming your relationship to it. Because how many of us know the work we need to do, or know the healing, know what's quote unquote part of our process, right? We know, okay, if I'm self-abandoning, then I shouldn't be self-abandoning. Or if I don't have good boundaries, then I need to better my boundaries. But it's one thing to know what we need to do on the level of mind, and it's another thing to turn it into an embodied experience. And so when you join the membership, you don't just get the full-blown masterclass with all of the hypnosis and guided meditations and processes and tools and workshops, right? It's full-blown, full-on. You can go at your own pace. But you also get access to all of my other high-level courses. I've got guided hypno activations, meditations. I also come on for monthly live Zoom sessions where I'm actually coaching and answering questions and workshopping things and giving a whole class. And it's really, really powerful. It's an intentional community. There's a community section inside the app where you can ask me all the questions you want. So you get access to me around the clock in that space as well. And so it's really a beautiful opportunity to not have to do this work alone. You get support, you're guided, you're held, you get to integrate this into your life. And so if something in you really feels called to go deeper with it, then the link is in the footnotes of this episode, and I would love to have you inside. And I want to make this really real for you. Right? Because you might right now be in a moment where things are actually shifting in your life. You know, maybe you're growing, maybe you're outgrowing old patterns, maybe you're calling in something deeper. Yeah. And instead of feeling calm, you feel activated, you feel stretched, right? Maybe you feel a little wrung out, or you feel like you're kind of in between these two versions of yourself, and something wants to kind of like shed old skin and leap into a new version of you. And, you know, that doesn't mean that something's wrong. It means that something important is happening. You know, and we even see this in the Kabbalistic concept called Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, but Mitzrayim translates to the narrow place. Right? And every soul has to move through its own version of that narrow place, because constriction always precedes expansion. You know, you cannot expand without first encountering the edge of what feels, oh, this is tight, this is pressure, this is uncomfortable. You know, so when anxiety shows up in moments of growth, it's often because you are leaving your internal Mitzrayim. You are moving beyond what once felt or was familiar, and your system is catching up to this upgraded, expanded, more aligned version of you. You know, and so, okay, so what do we do with this, and how do we actually work with this? Well, to put it really, really simply, you know, first, you have to stop making anxiety mean that something is wrong, period. That alone changes everything. Stop labeling anxiety as there's something wrong with me, right? Or this is just the way things are, or there's nothing I can do about it, right? Don't put yourself in the victim seat when it comes to your anxiety, because then you'll be stuck in the loop, in the trap of anxiety for the rest of your life, right? So having your anxiety means something different, because anxiety actually does have a very beautiful and special and sacred purpose. And so changing your meaning around it changes everything, because the moment you label it as wrong, you create resistance. And then you're just layering resistance on top of your anxiety, and that'll just amplify the experience you're having. Right? And so first, start to see anxiety as a teacher. It's information. Anxiety is an emotion. I always say emotion is energy in motion. energy in motion, emotion. And anxiety is energy that wants to move, right? Energy never gets lost. Energy never just like goes away. It gets transmuted. It gets alchemized. And when we learn how to work with it as energy, then it starts to shapeshift into passion and connection and creation and life force. I mean, so much of what I've created in my life came from what I was once calling anxiety, right? And so that's a really beautiful reframe around the sacred teacher that I now call anxiety, right? So that was step one. Second is so important to bring your awareness into your body, right? Because so many of us are just thinking that we're dealing with anxiety. Maybe we're going to traditional therapy and talking about it. But anxiety is not just thoughts. It's in your body. It's in your nervous system, right? It's where you feel like you feel where the activation lives in your body, right? You know it. It's in your chest. It's in your stomach, can be in your throat, And so instead of tightening around it by bringing your awareness to it and not resisting it, you start to soften, even if it's just 5%, right? And actually like experiencing this in real time is so much of what we do inside the membership, inside the Alchemize Anxiety Masterclass, because it has to be felt on the level of nervous system, right? Not just read a book about anxiety and then learn about it and then it'll go away. That's just not how it works, right? And then third is you anchor safety, right? I said the expansion has to happen alongside safety, right? So you have to anchor into safety, and it's not safety from the outside, right? It's not, no, let me go cuddle up in my bed and then I'll be safe because, you're not expanding inside of your bed. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but really expansion happens from within, right? So it's really about reminding yourself, in this moment, I am safe. In this moment, I am safe, because most anxiety is about future tripping, right? We're anticipating the what ifs, worst case scenario, but your body on the level of nervous system responds to the present moment, right? And then finally, it's important to stay with the sensations in the body. Don't run from it. How many of us are distracting or numbing or suppressing or trying to just make it go away? Right? That's just going to make it stronger. I compare anxiety to like a tantruming 3-year-old, right? If you tell the 3-year-old, leave me alone, just go away, what is that tantruming 3-year-old going to do? Tantrum louder, right? And louder and longer. But if you stay with that tantruming 3-year-old and you give that 3-year-old the gift of your calm and you don't run, right? You don't collapse, then you'll see that 3-year-old melts and comes back to a sense of nervous system regulation and safety. And then that 3-year-old can grow into the next expanded version of him or herself, right? So we stay with ourselves in this last step, and the truth is, like, the person who manifests consistently, like that person who's like always manifesting all the things all the time, is not the person who never feels anxiety, right? It's the person who knows how to stay with themselves through it. And then what happens is over time, something really beautiful begins to happen. And the same energy that once felt like anxiety begins to feel like excitement. It begins to feel like aliveness and creative energy, right? Because it was never meant to just disappear. It was simply meant to be transformed. And again, like I can say this from my own personal life, right? The same energy that used to feel like pressure in my chest, like I couldn't relax, like I was always bracing, right? That is now energy that fuels my work and expansion and leadership. And the reason for that is because I didn't just get rid of it. There is no getting rid of it. There's learning how to work with it, transmute it, alchemize it into creative life force. And that is the real work, So if you're in a moment where life is looking like it's getting better, but simultaneously your anxiety is getting louder, then, I really want you to hear this. You are not regressing. You are expanding. And your system is just catching up. And so the invitation is not to go backwards, but it's to become someone who can hold what it is that's wanting to come into your life, right? Because again, your life's not falling apart. It's opening. And sometimes opening feels like pressure before it feels like peace. Yeah. And so if this episode resonated with you, and if you felt seen in it, and if you know someone who is in that stretch right now, or dealing with anxiety, or going through, I don't know, a breakup or a lost job, or is building something or moving locations, right? Then please pay it forward. Share this episode with them. Let them know that they're not alone in it. And if this podcast has supported you, it would mean so much to me if you take a moment to rate it or review it. I also love to hear from you all. So please comment below. Let me know your thoughts, your feedback, your takeaways. It means a lot for me to know the humans that are on the other side listening. And really by giving it a review or a rating is how this work gets to reach the people who need it most. So I appreciate it deeply. And lastly, just remember, the anxiety is not the problem. It is the doorway. And on the other side of that doorway is the life that you've been longing for. And so thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you in the next episode. Here's to your rising. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going inside the Manifestation Method Portal app, your #1 destination for Kabbalistic manifestation. Inside, you'll unlock the secrets of manifestation through my proven Abra method, rooted in Kabbalah, psychology, and quantum physics, designed to help you manifest real, tangible results from the inside out. Join our global community of manifestors, explore our signature courses, monthly live manifestation workshops with me, Ayelet, and access our transformational hypno activations and attunements to rewire limiting beliefs and align with your soul's purpose. The app is available now on the Apple App Store and Google Play. To sign up, head over to ayeletpolonsky.com. Becoming a co-creator with the Creator is your birthright. Let's manifest the life you desire and deserve together.